mobility, build strength, improve balance, and gain confidence in your mobility through the Moving for Better Balance program. For questions and additional information, email C. Mullins at ymcanwnc.org.
Oh, hey, ladies and gentlemen, how's everyone doing today? Happy Tuesday to you. Man, what a day it is. You're listening to the Scoreboard. 844-STUDIO-4 is the phone number. That's 844-788-3464. If you want to be a part of the program, give me a call. Anything you want to talk about. Man, yesterday we spent quite a bit of time talking about the Carolina Panthers and the mess that they find themselves in, benching their starter, their number one pick from last year, Bryce Young. We talked a lot about that yesterday. Now, one thing I want to tell you guys, if you haven't done this yet, just go online, go to Google, type in Panthers, and go to news. Just see all those bad headlines. The Panthers are in the news cycle, but not for a good reason. Nobody has anything good to say about the Panthers right now. Should the Panthers trade Bryce Young? Mel Kiper Jr. yelling at the Panthers. I mean, nobody believes in this team right now. I don't. I don't know if you do. Maybe on Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock when they play the Raiders out in Las Vegas, Andy Dalton can change our hope for this team. But we're not going to spend too much time talking about the Panthers today. They did make a couple of moves, releasing some players. Not the biggest news in the world for them. It was a tight end and a linebacker, I believe, that got released. Not starters or anything like that. So no big news with the Panthers, but there is definitely fallout from the benching that was announced yesterday of Bryce Young, the starting quarterback. Here's a headline for you. The Panthers have no hope under David Tepper. 7 hours ago. Like I said, there's fallout. People are talking about this, and it's not going to get any better. Imagine Sunday, Andy Dalton leads the Panthers to their first win of the season. If he looks competent back there and puts up 24 points, even if they lose, it's not going to be a good look for Bryce Young. It's not. But like I said, we're not going to spend too much time talking about that today. We are going to talk high school sports. I want to go back to Friday night. We didn't really talk too much high school yesterday because of the breaking news of Bryce Young getting benched. But we did have a lot of high school football take place on Friday. We're also going to dive back into the college scene. We didn't spend too much time on the NCAA. We'll get into that. There's a lot of news breaking today in not only college, but the NFL as well. By the way, one of those news stories is that the Dolphins have placed Tua Tagovailoa on the injured reserve. He will miss at least 4 games. That is official. It has happened. We all saw that injury that he suffered on Thursday night with the concussion. We hope the best for him, right? You never want to see a player get hurt like that and lose their career because of that kind of an injury. But it is official. The Dolphins have placed Tua Tagovailoa on the injured reserved list. We're going to talk some baseball today. Today is the 17th of September. The season ends on the 29th of September. 12 days remain. And I'll tell you what, I really thought that the National League was going to be the league that heated up when it came to the playoff race. The American League is really tight right now, especially for these wild card spots. The division races are still close in some of these divisions, but for the most part, we got our eyes on this wild card race. A lot of teams 1, 2, 3 games back of the final spots. 12 days to go. By the way, if the Chicago White Sox don't want to have the worst record of the modern era, then they need to win 7 of their last 12. Not going to happen. They might win 1 of their last 12, to be honest with you. Although they are on a 3-game winning streak. Who would have thought, right? 3-game winning streak for the White Sox, man. Whew. We'll dive back into the college ranks. Like I said, go back, look at some things that happened over the weekend. Some news about possible moving for conferences, some teams, some schools that might be jumping ship here. Look, the Mountain West might be falling apart in front of our very eyes. We had 4 schools depart or announce that they were going to depart in the 2026-2027 school year to go to the Pac-12, which is trying to rebuild. Now some news about Air Force possibly jumping ship here, heading to the ACC. Possibly. San Jose State, Fresno State, Boise State, and San Diego State were the schools, I believe I have that correctly, the schools that have decided to go to the Pac-12 in that season. That leaves 8 in the Mountain West. If they lose Air Force, they're not really a conference anymore. They'll have to find somebody else. This is going to happen for the next few years. I've been telling you about this. We're eventually going to get to a place where there's 2 conferences in college football. It's going to be the SEC and the Big Ten. Probably. I mean, it's definitely going to be the ACC. Nobody's going to break that up. The ACC is fighting to stay alive. Bringing in the Air Force? Air Force? You're going to lose Florida State probably. Maybe even Clemson. Something that you're going to have to keep an eye on, man. It really is. Also, in the world of sports, we have some NASCAR to talk about today. No real news breaking, but I do want to make sure that I have you guys updated on what's going on. Race this Saturday night. We will hear from a couple of drivers throughout the week. Also, got to let you guys know about this. Tomorrow, we have a special interview. Coach Claire Polk down at Pine Lake High School, the volleyball coach, will be joining us, bringing a student athlete along with her. And on Thursday, we're going to speak to the Statesville High School football coach, maybe a player. We'll see what we got, but some interesting interviews here lined up in the future. You're going to be able to hear them right here on the Scoreboard as they'll join us live tomorrow and Thursday. So some fun shows upcoming. But today we got to talk about what's going on in the world of sports. Now, I want to start in the baseball world. I do, because we didn't spend any time on baseball yesterday. With all the Bryce Young news and stuff from the weekend that we wanted to talk about, we didn't update you on the baseball race. So we're going to start with baseball today. Going to the standings. Right now, here's how things shake down. The Yankees have a 3-game lead over the Baltimore Orioles. The Guardians 5 games ahead of the Royals. The Astros now 4 games ahead of the Mariners. Phillies have an 8-game lead over the Mets. A 10-game lead now for the Brewers over the Cubs, and only a 3.5-game lead for the Dodgers over the Padres, who are starting to heat up again. We'll talk more about baseball. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We got to take our first break of the day here coming up. After we talk baseball, we'll jump into the high school world, go over some games from the weekend, let you know what's going on, what to keep an eye on. Some volleyball going on tonight. Pine Lake's going to be playing. Maybe they'll be able to win and come in here tomorrow in a good mood. We'll see. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Scoreboard. Just getting started here on this Thursday. We'll be back after this.
More of Sports Director Joe Berg's The Scoreboard is coming up on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, our wind is gone and our rain is tapered off to nothing more than a few scattered showers that can still remain for the rest of our Tuesday evening. We'll stay mostly cloudy as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures tonight drop down into the mid-60s for our Wednesday. Well, don't put the rain gear away just yet. Some clouds and a few peaks of sun at times, but we'll run another chance of scattered showers for our Wednesday afternoon. Getting drier, though, toward the end of the week, and a nice weekend coming up. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses like Nina's Boutique.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. This Friday night, the monthly car show Hot Rods and Hops returns to RevFast. The late Apex Storage Condos on Cayuga Drive in Mooresville welcomes the slickest and fastest cars, motorcycles, trucks, racing, and high-performance machines. Food trucks will be on hand for delicious dinners, and Hoptown Brewing will be serving up cold beer. Get your weekend started off right with Hot Rods and Hops this Friday night at 6 p.m. at the late Apex Storage Condos in Mooresville. Birkdale Village's Live Under the Oaks concert series is also happening on Friday night. Ryan Winters will be playing on the Birkdale stage in Huntersville beginning at 6 p.m. Food and beverages will be for sale at the many restaurants around the village. Grab your chairs and your friends for the Ryan Winters concert Friday night at Birkdale Village in Huntersville. Movie in the Park is happening September 20th in downtown Huntersville. The show at Veterans Park on Main Street and Maxwell Street is open to the public free of charge. Bring your blankets and lawn chairs for an evening under the stars with the showing of Space Jam on a big screen. Movie in the Park begins at 7:30 p.m. at Veterans Park in Huntersville on Friday. The NHRA returns to ZMAX Dragway this weekend for the Carolina Nationals. When the temperatures cool down, the excitement heats up at the Bellagio drag strips. Every ticket is a pit pass, giving fans unmatched access to the drivers and crews who power the NHRA's thunderous 11,000 horsepower machines to their limits. Visit CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for information, tickets, and details.
The Renaissance Festival is back Saturdays and Sundays, October 5th through November 24th. A non-stop outdoor family adventure. Tickets available online only at renfestinfo.com while supplies last.
To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Conversations that matter.
I gotta tell you, I'm afraid to even think about the next presidential election.
Led by you.
It's a mockery of American politics.
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
Home of the best talk.
WSIC. Local starts here.
It's the Scoreboard with your host, Sports Director Joe Berg on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Got ahead of myself on the outro for the last segment. It is not Thursday. Today is Tuesday. Right? I don't even know anymore. I just know days of the week they happen. We're here, though. You're listening to the Scoreboard on WSIC 844. Studio 4 is the phone number. We're talking a little baseball right now. 12 days remain in the MLB season. If the playoffs were to end today, your number one seed in the American League would be the New York Yankees. The number one seed in the National League would be the Phillies. Just thought I'd give you an update. Guardians in the American League and Dodgers in the National League would also get those first round buys. Remember, the top two in each league get buys, top two division winners, and then your third division winner is going to have to play a wild card, and then you got wild card games between actual wild card teams. I know, it's kind of a mess. It is. But that's the baseball playoffs nowadays. And I think we talked about this a little bit, separating stats from the American League and National League. You don't have to do that anymore. It's one giant league now. Rules are all the same. I do wish that we had a league-wide MVP. You know, you can have American League and National League MVPs, but we definitely should have a league-wide MVP in baseball because, man, it would be some race to see who would win it this year between Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, the two biggest names of the season so far. Shohei Ohtani's having an incredible year. Batting .288 right now with 47 home runs and 48 stolen bases. With 12 days remaining in the season, he needs 3 home runs and 2 steals to do something that nobody has ever done, and that's have 50 home runs and 50 steals in a season. Aaron Judge was able to break his home run list streak. I guess, is that a word? Home run list? His streak of not hitting a home run. He broke it. He is now up to 53 home runs on the year. Not going to get anywhere near that 60 number that we were tracking. I think the streak was 13 games without a home run for Aaron Judge. It was either 12 or 13, somewhere around there, which was the longest in his career. And I think we saw a stretch like that in 2022 when he broke the record for American League home runs in a season, where it gets towards the end of the year and you're like, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? He ended up obviously doing it, breaking that streak and hitting some home runs towards the end of the year. But I'd be really curious to see who everybody thinks that and look, you could even throw Bobby Witt Jr. in there if you want. I mean, he doesn't have ridiculous numbers by any stretch. I mean, they're great numbers. But he's not hitting 50 home runs. He's got 32. 32 is a good number. 29 steals. He's going to be in the 30-30 club. You know how many steals Aaron Judge has is only 9. Now, I really don't think it's going to be close in the American League MVP vote. I think it's going to be Aaron Judge. But Bobby Witt, man, in any other year where Aaron Judge isn't playing, he'd be the MVP this year. Batting over 330. He's got 32 home runs. I mean, that's a year right there. But Aaron Judge is just far and above having a better year. By the way, Bobby Witt Jr. has almost 100 more at-bats than Aaron Judge does this year. But that's because, Aaron Judge has walked 122 times. By far. Well, not by far, but it is the most in baseball. Second on that list is his teammate Juan Soto. Yankees have a couple of killers there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when we get to the postseason. I'm excited for the offseason. I know that sounds weird, but what's going to happen with Juan Soto? Is he going to stay with the Yankees and have this killer 1-2 for the next 10 years? Or is he going to jump ship? Another thing to keep an eye on in the baseball world is when we get to the playoffs, Shohei Ohtani and the possibility of him being a pitcher. Now, I didn't think that this was going to happen. Okay, I really thought we would just wait until next year. But Dave Roberts, the manager for the Dodgers, kind of threw it out there as a throwaway quote where he said, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Ohtani pitches in the postseason. What? You're going to have the National League MVP who maybe is going to be the first player in a 50-50 club ever, and now he's going to get on the mound? Generational talent. I feel bad for you if you're not watching baseball. I do. Because this is something to behold. I don't know the next time we're going to see a player like Shohei Ohtani. Yes, we saw in basketball the revolution of basketball that Steph Curry made by being a three-point shooter, being a sharpshooter, being the best shooter in basketball. Now, everybody wants to shoot threes. I don't know if Shohei Ohtani is going to have the same effect on baseball, where kids coming up through the ranks are going to say, no, I'm not a pitcher only. I'm going to pitch and hit and play the field. I'm a baseball player, which, you grow up doing that. You might as well keep doing it your whole career. I never understood that. Besides the point. I don't know if we're going to have a revolution like that where 5, 10, 15 years from now, we have 10 players who are two-way players. But it is something to consider that Ohtani could be changing the game. And, man, if he pitches in the postseason this year, that's going to be something. You're going to have to, it's going to be appointment viewing. You're going to have to tune into that. Let's get into these wild card races right now for the playoffs. Like I said, 12 days remaining in the season. Everybody has a different amount of games, some with 12, some with 11, 10, 9. You know how it is in baseball. The Yankees, Guardians, and Astros are your division leaders, like we said, in the American League. The wild cards currently would go to the Baltimore Orioles, the Kansas City Royals, and the Minnesota Twins. Now, the Minnesota Twins and the Baltimore Orioles are both on a very cold streak. The Twins only winning 3 of their last 10. The Detroit Tigers are the first team out of the playoffs in the American League. Tigers are only a game and a half behind the Twins now. The Mariners, remember maybe 3 weeks ago, we were saying it looks like their only path is to win the division, but there's plenty of time for things to change. Well, now the Mariners are only 2 games out of the wild card. Still 4 games behind the Astros for the division lead, but they're only 2 out of the wild card. So these wild card races are starting to heat up, and it's going to come down to the last few days of the season. Maybe not the very last day, but the last few days of the season is what this is going to come down to. Behind that are the Red Sox, 4 games out. The Red Sox 4 games out of the wild card, and they are 75 wins, 75 losses. That's mediocrity right there. It's like the definition of mediocrity. In the National League, like we said, it's Phillies, Dodgers, and Brewers are your division leaders. Right now, the wild cards would go to the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the New York Mets. They had an incredible end of August, early September, going on an absolute tear to put themselves into this spot. They hold a 1-game lead in the wild card over the first team out. That would be the Atlanta Braves. Behind the Braves, the Cubs 5 games back, and the Cardinals are 7 back. I don't think that those teams are going to have a shot at the wild card, but you never know. You go on a 6-7 game winning streak at the end of the year, and all of a sudden anything's possible, right? But that is where things stand in Major League Baseball right now. We are getting ever so closer to postseason baseball. It's going to start at the beginning of October with the wild card games. I'm excited. I personally, I can't wait for playoff baseball. Man, are you going to have to figure out what to watch now. Playoff baseball is a few days away. I think exactly 2 weeks from now, actually, is when playoff baseball is going to be starting. Then you're going to have football. Charlotte FC is going to be in the playoffs, maybe, if they can figure it out. They seem to have been slumping towards the end of the year here. Not what you want to see. NCAA football. And everything's going on. NASCAR, Saturday night NASCAR. There's going to be some month of October here coming up. Let's move on to the high school scene, get you updated on some of these schools in the area, some records and some teams that are going to be playing today, maybe not in football, but let's start in the football scene, starting with a team that played over the weekend on Friday. It was South Iredell High School getting their 2nd win of the year over Piedmont. That was a road win for South Iredell, putting them at 2-2 on the year. South Iredell has a game on the road again against West Cabarrus coming up this Friday. Now, they're going to have a few road games in a row here. On the road against Piedmont, on the road against West Cabarrus, and then in a couple of weeks on the road against Hickory Ridge. But they end their season with 3 of the last 4 games at home, which could really turn the tide on their record. They sit at 2-2. They want to go into the playoffs. They're going to have to defend home turf and steal a couple of road wins. We're going to get into more schools, including North Iredell, West Iredell, Lake Norman, and my alma mater, Pine Lake, here on the other side of the commercial break. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We still got plenty of time left on the scoreboard today. 844-STUDIO-4 is the phone number if you want to be a part of the program. Don't go anywhere. Lots to talk about. We're back after this.
Keep it right here. We'll have more of the Scoreboard with Joe Berg in just a moment from 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, our wind is gone and our rain has tapered off to nothing more than a few scattered showers that can still remain for the rest of our Tuesday evening. We'll stay mostly cloudy as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures tonight drop down into the mid-60s for our Wednesday. Well, don't put the rain gear away just yet. Some clouds and a few peaks of sun at times, but we'll run another chance of scattered showers for our Wednesday afternoon. Getting drier, though, toward the end of the week, and a nice weekend coming up. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Attention, fellow conservative investors. What does the name Reagan mean to you? It stands for being the ultimate conservative. It also stands for the Reagan Gold Group. Do you see storm clouds approaching? The stock market hates uncertainty, and there are plenty of reasons to be concerned. High inflation, unstable debt, and economic uncertainty are just a few. You have car insurance, homeowners insurance, and life insurance. But do you have insurance for your retirement savings and your 401k? We urge all fellow conservative investors to learn about the one asset that could help ensure your nest egg doesn't crack under economic pressure. G-O-L-D, gold. Call the one name any conservative investor needs to know about. Reagan Gold Group.
800-296-1557. 800-296-1557. 800-296-1557. That's 800-296.
Bob McIntosh here with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Serving this community has been a collective passion of our law firm since 1997. We offer the quality legal services and results you would expect from a large downtown firm, but with a personal, community-focused approach right here at home. The McIntosh Law Firm, your local legal resource.
To learn more about the McIntosh Law Firm, visit McIntoshLawFirm.com.
We're at Black Automotive. The Buick Encore GX is now at a low 0.9% for 36 months or a $3,000 rebate. Or the Buick Envista is also 0.9% for 36 months. And there's more here at Black Automotive Station.
Have you taken the Desco Challenge? The people have spoken. Desco is where the professional goes for electrical supplies.
Hi, my name is Randy. I'm a general contractor, and I always trust the products at Desco.
See for yourself at DescoInc.com.
Tilly Harley-Davidson is simply the best, and their service department is second to none. Right now, 1K, 5K, and 10K M8 service is only $351.25 plus tax, including SIN 3 and heavy gear oil. Stop by to schedule your next service or online at TillyHD.com. Be road ready with Tilly of Statesville.
I'm Bryce Johnson with this Unpacking It Sports and Faith Minute. In sports, there is a huge difference when players have a true love for the game. The more passionate they are about the sport, the better they play, and the less likely they are to just go through the motions. Similarly, when it comes to following Jesus, when we truly love him, we won't just go through the motions. Well, when our faith is rooted in our love for Christ, we will have a desire to know him, obey him, and become more like him. Jesus said in John 14:15, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." When we passionately love Jesus, we willingly serve him, find joy in communing with him, and we do what he says. So today, instead of following Jesus because we feel like we have to, let's follow him because we love him and trust him with our lives. I'm Bryce Johnson, and you can unpack that. For more, go to unpackingit.com.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. The Alaska Air-Hawaiian Airlines merger is ready for takeoff. The Transportation Department is letting the merger go ahead after the airlines agreed to put new consumer protections in place involving key routes, loyalty programs, and other things. The department's decision is the last hurdle for the nearly $2 billion deal. Artificial intelligence means a whole new business world, and Salesforce is getting ready for that by changing its business model. It ushered in the era of software as service. Now it plans to charge $2 per conversation because its AI tools, it says, can handle scheduling sales meetings and customer service without human supervision. And that protects Salesforce if business customers have fewer workers. On Wall Street, the jitters kept the records away ahead of tomorrow's Federal Reserve decision on interest rates. The Dow fell 16 points. The S&P and NASDAQ edged higher, with gains ranging from the flat line to 0.2%. The S&P up a point. The NASDAQ up 36. Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
The Scoreboard with Joe Berg continues now on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the second half of the scoreboard here today. 844 Studio 4 is the phone number if you have something you want to chat with me about. I am here for the next 24 minutes, something like that, having some fun talking about the world of sports with you as we progress through the sports seasons here. We're talking a little high school on the other side of the break. And some of the games from Friday, because yesterday was a mess. We had to talk about that developing story with Bryce Young getting benched. Still fallout today. Nobody's happy. Everybody thinks that the Panthers are a disaster. I think the reason we haven't heard from David Tepper is because he also thinks it's a disaster right now. And it kind of is. It really is. Anyway, we're talking high school sports. We're not going to jump back into the NFL just yet. Tomorrow we can start previewing. We got Thursday night and then we got the weekend coming up. Right now we're talking high school sports, high school football, some games from the weekend. We talked about this on Friday. North Iredell was able to get their first win of the season on a Thursday night against Mountain Island Charter. Final score in that one was 21-7. Congratulations, North Iredell, getting your first victory of the year. They will actually be playing on the road coming up on Friday against Ford High School. So that's coming up for North Iredell. Some other teams that were in action from the weekend. West Iredell played West Wilkes, getting their record up to 2-1 right now. West Iredell lost their first game of the year against the Community School of Davidson, CSD. Then they won their next two on the road against West Caldwell and a home win against West Wilkes. So next up for West Iredell is going to be St. Stephen's. And you look at their record right now, they are doing okay in the 3A Western Foothills. There are quite a few 3-0 teams still. You got Hickory, Statesville, East Lincoln, and North Lincoln all at 3-0, but none of those schools have played any conference games yet. We're coming up on those conference games, some this weekend, some next weekend. It looks like a lot of schools are actually starting this weekend for the conference games, so we'll keep you updated on record schedules, who's going into the playoffs. Look, there's not many games left in the season. I know it feels like we just started, but some schools are right at the halfway point already. We got 5 games played, 4 games played. You're right there at the halfway point. It's time for a playoff push. Win your conference games, have a good conference record. You're going to go to the playoffs. That's what it's all about, right? Also, we talked about Lake Norman quite a bit. Lake Norman losing that game to Statesville a couple of weeks ago. Well, they continue to win. That's the only blip on their schedule so far. They won against North Mech, shutting them out 23-0. A win against Asheville, 32-15. And Marvin Ridge, another win last Friday, 22-16. So we got Lake Norman High School at 3-1 right now, tied for the lead in the 4A Greater Metro. They're off this week, Lake Norman. No game for Lake Norman. They'll come back next weekend with A.L. Brown. That'll be a home game for Lake Norman. And I got to tell you about Statesville High School. Like I said, we're going to have head coach, Coach Cowan in studio on Thursday to chat about the season starting 3-0. They were off last week on Friday, so their next game coming up on Friday is going to be on the road against North Lincoln. Battle of a couple of 3-0 teams and the start of conference play for some of these schools. Like I said, conference games are important. You got to win those if you're going to go to the playoffs. You got a chance to start off big here. 2 3-0 schools going up against each other this Friday. North Lincoln will be hosting Statesville High School. We talked with Brett Hayford, athletic director for Pine Lake, and apparently, as we found out, defensive coordinator for the Pine Lake football team. He was telling us about homecoming coming up. It was on Friday for Pine Lake, a young team with a lot of freshmen and sophomores on that team. They didn't get the win in their homecoming game, dropping a game to Lake Norman Charter. 27-7 was the final score in that one. starting the year off 0-3. Tough start for Pine Lake football. But I'll tell you what, Pine Lake volleyball, man, they lost the first game of the year against Lake Norman Charter. Now, it was a non-conference game. It was a friendly, They lost it 3-0. Since that loss, Pine Lake has dropped a total of 2 sets. Tonight, they're in action again on the road against CSD, Community School of Davidson. That one's going to get started here in about 20 minutes or so. So Pine Lake with a chance to continue the great season that they've had so far. Give you a update on the 1A conference. This is the Catawba Shores Athletic 1A, 2A volleyball conference. Pine Lake has the lead at 6-0 in the conference, 10-1 overall. Second right now is Community School of Davidson, who they'll be taking on tonight on the road. That's a conference game. Both of those teams undefeated in the conference so far, so this is going to be a battle for first place in that conference. Man, you got some pretty good ranked schools here. Pine Lake ranked 64th in the state. Community School of Davidson 78th in the state, so pretty evenly matched schools here, according to Max Prep, so always got to throw that out there. I'm not the one ranking these schools. And last but not least, let's go ahead and let you know about that Lake Norman Charter volleyball team. They're the ones that beat Pine Lake to start the year. They're actually 11-0 now. In the entire season, Lake Norman Charter has dropped 3 sets, never more than 1 set in a game. That's some domination right now. They are in the Southern Piedmont 3A volleyball conference, leading the conference 9-0. Carson High School is second in that conference at 7-1, but 12-5-0 for Carson and 11-0 right now for Lake Norman Charter, who is going to be in action tomorrow. They got a home game against Robinson. That'll be a conference matchup as well. Not many games left for the volleyball season, ladies and gentlemen. We are more than halfway through now. So we're going to keep you updated on playoffs as they come around. Schedules, scores, standings, all that fun stuff. And tomorrow, like I said, we have a treat. We're going to we're really going to take a deep dive into volleyball. Figure it out. Talk about Pine Lake and their volleyball season. We're going to have the head coach and one of the student athletes over there in studio with us on the scoreboard. Should be a lot of fun tomorrow. Can't wait for that conversation. So make sure you tune in tomorrow for more of your high school updates. One thing that I wanted to do is shout out the high school football player of the week, according to the Charlotte Observer, and that would be Cameron Sire. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly. Cameron Sire, he had 3 sacks. Now, he didn't play on Friday. This is from the week before. 3 sacks in that game as Huff High School is off and running on a great start to their football season. We're going to head to our final commercial break of the day, ladies and gentlemen. When we return, get into some of the news stories that have been breaking today, some college football information for you. It's interesting. It is. I think you're going to want to hear this about schools and paying players and all that NIL stuff. It's still the Wild West, but it's starting to it's starting to be reined in a little bit here. So we'll talk a little bit about that on the other side of the break and some other news stories that caught my eye. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. One segment to go on this Tuesday, not Thursday, it's Tuesday. You're listening to The Scoreboard, and we're back after this.
This guy knows his sports, right? There's more of The Scoreboard with Joe Berg on the way on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, our wind is gone and our rain is tapered off to nothing more than a few scattered showers that can still remain for the rest of our Tuesday evening. We'll stay mostly cloudy as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures tonight drop down into the mid-60s for our Wednesday. Well, don't put the reindeer away just yet. Some clouds and a few peaks of sun at times, but we'll run another chance of scattered showers for our Wednesday afternoon. Getting drier, though, toward the end of the week, and a nice weekend coming up. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. This Friday night, the monthly car show Hot Rods and Hops returns to RevFast. The late Apex Storage Condos on Cayuga Drive in Mooresville welcomes the slickest and fastest cars, motorcycles, trucks, racing, and high-performance machines. Food trucks will be on hand for delicious dinners, and Hoptown Brewing will be serving up cold beer. Get your weekend started off right with Hot Rods and Hops this Friday night at 6 p.m. at the late Apex Storage Condos in Mooresville. Brookdale Village's Live Under the Oaks concert series is also happening on Friday night. Ryan Winters will be playing on the Brookdale stage in Huntersville beginning at 6 p.m. Food and beverages will be for sale at the many restaurants around the village. Grab your chairs and your friends for the Ryan Winters concert Friday night at Brookdale Village in Huntersville. Movie in the Park is happening September 20th in downtown Huntersville. The show at Veterans Park on Main Street and Maxwell Street is open to the public free of charge. Bring your blankets and lawn chairs for an evening under the stars with the showing of Space Jam on a big screen. Movie in the Park begins at 7:30 p.m. at Veterans Park in Huntersville on Friday. The NHRA returns to ZMAX Dragway this weekend for the Carolina Nationals. When the temperatures cool down, the excitement heats up at the Bellagio of drag strips. Every ticket is a pit pass, giving fans unmatched access to the drivers and crews who power the NHRA's thunderous 11,000 horsepower machines to their limits. Visit CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for information, tickets, and details.
The Renaissance Festival is back Saturdays and Sundays, October 5th through November 24th. A non-stop outdoor family adventure. Tickets available online only at renfestinfo.com while supplies last.
To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
The Ugly Antenna has now become a household name in this area. The Ugly Antenna allows those without a streaming provider to receive up to 50 channels absolutely free of charge, including Fox 46.1. The Ugly Antenna is small and connects directly to your TV. Get the Ugly Antenna for just $40. Call 704-682-1755. That's 704-682-1755 for the Ugly Antenna.
Talk sports with Joe Berg. Call 844-STUDIO-4. It's the Scoreboard on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Final segment here on the Scoreboard. Still taking calls if you want to chat with me. 844-STUDIO-4 is the phone number. We're going to talk a little bit of things that are in the news cycle today, including this rumor. Here's a rumor for you. Talked a little bit about, teased it at the beginning of the program. It has to do with Air Force. Air Force has emerged as a serious target to be added to the American Athletic Conference, the AAC, sources told ESPN on Monday. Air Force had been referred in conversations as a potential AAC add in recent months, but this was prior to the Pac-12 taking 4 Mountain West Conference schools last week. Here is a statement from the AAC, the American Athletic Conference. The AACC is a pioneering brand firmly grounded in grit and hard work with powerful and prestigious member institutions. In the past 5 months, we have prioritized seizing every opportunity that enhances value for our member institutions and student athletes. I guess this isn't really a denial or yeah, we are going to try to get Air Force into our conference. And look, we've talked about it, man. The AAC is not a conference that's going to survive when all of this shuffling of conferences is over. It's just not. And love it or hate it, this is what college sports is becoming. You're going to have your big conferences, which have always been your Power 5. Right now, Power 4, because the Pac-12's kind of falling apart. Big 12, Big 10, ACC, and SEC, right? You got those 4. Pac-12, it's going to get rebuilt, but for how long? Like, what is the end goal here with all of this shuffling of conferences? All these schools moving, you got West Coast schools playing an East Coast schedule. Like, what is the end game here, right? I don't know. But what I think is we're going to get to a place where you have, let's call it 50 schools in Division I. I don't think it's going to remain over 130 or whatever they have now. You're going to have your top 50 schools, maybe 60. We'll call it 60. You put 30 in the SEC and 30 in the Big 12, or Big 10, I'm sorry. Just because that's the conferences that we have that are starting to emerge as the dominant conferences. Yeah, you have the Power 5, but within that Power 5, you have 2 who have really emerged as the top. The ACC wants to be at the top. Kinda. They are, but not really. It's the SEC and the Big 10. Big 12 is one of those where you're like, yeah, there's still Power 5. Okay. Right? Schools are shuffling. Texas moving and Longhorns and it is a mess right now. But I really do think that eventually, once all the shuffling ends, we're going to end up with 2 conferences. And I hope that there's relegation, promotion. You're going to have your 1AA schools and the rest of the 1A schools that don't make these top 50 in another conference. And you just say, okay, the top 5 in this conference get moved into Division I, and the bottom 5 get moved into 1AA. Does it sound crazy? Yeah. But you know what sounded crazy 10 years ago was paying your athletes. Well, guess what? They're paying athletes, and it's going to get worse. Do you hear the report about Tennessee? I had it pulled up here earlier, but apparently Tennessee is going to be increasing their ticket prices by 10% because the school is going to have to pay the players now. So the report is that Tennessee will be adding a 10% talent fee on all football tickets starting next season. The fee will go specifically to players, helping fund the proposed revenue share with players. That estimates that per seat prices are going to increase about 4.5% for the entire stadium, because they also include student increase in that, season ticket holders, game-by-game increases. It's a mess. I'm telling you, nobody's going to like this. You're going to see the ticket price. I saw a report that said the cheapest ticket to go to see Tennessee right now is like $400. And now you're going to add $40 more on top of that as a talent fee. What happened to boosters? I thought that's what NIL was supposed to be, was the boosters, right? Isn't that what it was? It's the Wild West. But this is not NIL. This is actual revenue sharing that has been proposed, and it's expected to happen next year, and it's still in court. It's a mess. I don't know how this part of college sports ends. Like, is it going to be contracts? Are we going to get a collective bargaining agreement? Like, what does this look like in the future? It's going to be a mess. Just hang on tight. Enjoy the ride. It'll be fun. So that's a little update for you. Also, I don't know if anybody saw this. Mississippi coach Lane Kiffin went on the podium and said that Wake Forest violated an unwritten rule because they opted out of next year's matchup, which means that Ole Miss, they got to find another school to play next year, and everybody's schedules are already set. Now, this is part of a deal that was supposed to be a 2-year home-and-home with Wake Forest and Mississippi. Wake Forest got absolutely dominated, 40-6. And after the loss said, you know what, we're just not going to play you next year. You're off our schedule. Here's the quote from Kiffin. He said, that's rarely ever done. I never really heard of doing it, and it really puts us at a big disadvantage. It is what it is. It obviously wasn't appreciated very much, them putting us in that situation. Now we got to go find somebody, and most people are all scheduled up. And even when you find somebody, you got to pay them. It's kind of an unwritten rule not to do that. And he said, it is what it is. I don't understand how you can pull out of a matchup that late. Like, these schedules are made years in advance, right? And who are they going to insert into that game? The game was scheduled for almost a year, almost exactly a year from today, September 13th of next year. That's an early season game, a lot of options, but everybody basically already has their schedule ready for the next 2 years, right? 2 or 3 years, I think, is what they schedule out in college. So even what's funny about that is you could go coach a school, and that first year that you're there, you're like, I didn't make this schedule. Why do we have to play these schools? Just a little funny part of college athletics. But that is where we stand in the world of college football. Man, it seems like everything's the Wild West. Like, there's no respect. Nobody cares. Just go out there and play as many good teams as you can. And who cares if we take you off our schedule? It's the world we live in now with college football, though. It's going to be a mess for quite some time. And don't expect for the NCAA to resolve it on their own. Also, don't expect for the U.S. government to get it resolved anytime soon. We're going to be kind of in limbo here for the next few years with college football. Enjoy the ride. Let's go ahead and head to this day in sports history as we're coming up on the final couple of minutes here of the program today. It was on this day in 2004. Barry Bonds hit his 700th career home run on this day. That was 2004. 2019 on this day, San Francisco Giants outfielder Mike Yastrzemski hit a home run in his first pitch at Fenway Park, the longtime home field of his grandfather, Carl Yastrzemski. How about that? Seems like that was kind of like meant to be there. On this day in 2000, Dan Marino's number 13 was retired by the Miami Dolphins. Let's see. Can we squeeze a couple of more in here? 1984, Reggie Jackson is the 13th player to hit 500 home runs in a career. Obviously in a career. Also, Dwight Gooden ties a record with 32 strikeouts in consecutive games. So total it up in 2 games, in back-to-back games, he tallied 32 strikeouts. That tied an MLB record on this day. And let's see, we got one old one that we can squeeze in here. Way back when. Let's see, we got a good one here. Honus Wagner retired at 43, and then the Pirates retired his number 33. That's American baseball shortstop. Honus Wagner, he retired in 1917. Some things that happened on this day. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the program today. Had a lot of fun rocking with you. Tomorrow, we're going to have a nice interview with head coach of Pine Lake Volleyball, Coach Claire Polk. Tune in for that. Until then, have a good night, everyone.
Serving you better than ever before. 105.9 100.7